Aaron Knights, and I practice in the area of commercial civil litigation. Went to law school in St. Louis at Washington University, moved to Washington, D.C. after law school, where I clerked for a judge, practiced there for nearly 20 years, and just relocated to my hometown of Buffalo, New York this past summer. I bring, I think, a practical approach to litigation. My goal is always to try and resolve a case or a dispute in as most favorable a manner and as early as I possibly can for a client. I have always been interested in government and policy, and that interest goes back to when I was a kid. So going to law school seemed like a natural fit. When I went to college, I studied political science. I interned for a private criminal defense lawyer, handled some really interesting cases. One in particular, a client was charged with capital murder, and he was actually innocent. And so I did everything from write briefs to interview witnesses, and we were able to convince the prosecution to drop all the charges and actually exonerate him prior to even going to trial. That left a pretty lasting impact on me as to how powerful the right lawyer can be for a client, and how powerful our legal system can be in helping to right some wrongs. So beyond that, I enjoy helping people deal with their problems and resolve them in a way that makes the most sense to them. There have been a lot. I've represented financial institutions and foreign governments in Anti-Terrorism Act cases in federal courts. I represented a very wealthy individual who got into a dispute over a 737 aircraft that he purchased, and we ended up litigating over with the company who was going to outfit that aircraft, or effectively design and build out the interior of the aircraft. That one was a lot of fun. One of the more memorable cases I was involved in was when I was in law school. I worked for a criminal justice clinic, and we had a client who wanted to rob a convenience store, and he came into the convenience store with a knife and pulled a paper bag over his head and forgot to cut the eye holes out of the paper bag. And so the clerk jumped over the counter and detained him for the police to arrive. That one was, I think, humorous, but we didn't really have a lot to work with in terms of a defense for the guy. Outside of work, I spend most of my time with my wife and daughters. I have a 16-year-old and a 10-year-old, or soon-to-be 10-year-old daughter. And I'm a bit of a camp counselor dad. I like to find any and everything we can do outside of the house to have fun when I'm not detained behind a computer or in court, whether that's museums or fishing or hiking. That's where you're going to find me most of the time when I'm outside of work. I enjoy running, although COVID has put a kibosh on much of my exercise activity. I need a routine, and COVID has disrupted that routine, but I do enjoy running and getting outdoors, and reading both fiction and nonfiction, particularly American history. My legal tip would be to, at least in litigation, to be proactive in trying to avoid litigation. Most of us, I think, when we're engaged in a commercial relationship of some sort, has a red light that might go off on our shoulder when things aren't going quite the way that they should. And I would recommend that instead of waiting for the situation to actually blow up and turn into a full-blown dispute, that you contact a lawyer before then, follow your gut, take a few minutes to talk through the situation with a lawyer who can probably help you avoid a very expensive undertaking, either in arbitration or in courts.